One of the most common silver bullet tax ideas floating around is the idea of hiring your kids. The pitch sounds simple. If you're a business owner, you can put your children on payroll, deduct their pay as a business expense, and they won't owe any tax on the income. It's an interesting one because it's partially true. But when clients bring this up, there are usually some really important points missing. The fact is, yes, you can hire your children, and it's completely legal. If your kids or anyone earn less than the standard deduction amount in earned income, they don't pay income tax on those wages. So that part is true. For example, in 2025, the standard deduction is $15,750. If you had 3 kids and each earned that amount, they would pay no income tax, and you would get a $47,250 deduction. For a small business, especially a sole proprietorship, that could save you roughly $16,000 in taxes. Sounds great, right? So what's the catch? Like any business expense, it has to be both ordinary and necessary, meaning that a reasonable third party would agree it's legitimate. Your kids have to do real work that benefits the business, and it has to be at a reasonable rate of pay. You can't just say, I'm paying my 10-year-old $15,750 to clean the office, if that's not what you would pay anyone else for the job. It doesn't work. The IRS knows these are your children, and that's exactly why they look closely at these arrangements. And here's one I hear all the time. I can pay my baby to be a model on my website. Well, would you normally pay thousands of dollars for a model on your website? Maybe if your business is baby photography, sure, but in most businesses, no. Having a nice family photo on your website is not a valid reason to pay your kids thousands of dollars in modeling fees. As the IRS modernizes, it's easy to imagine a future where their systems can instantly flag that you have dependents listed on payroll. Just because they aren't catching that in 2025 doesn't mean they won't soon. And remember, ignorance of the law is no excuse. To qualify, the work must be ordinary and necessary for the business, appropriate for your child's age and ability, and paid at a reasonable rate. If your child is 2, they're not cleaning your office. If they're 8, maybe they're helping with mailings, but at a modest hourly rate. If they're modeling, ask yourself, would you pay someone else the same amount for this work? If not, it's not actually a valid deduction. Now let's say you clear that first big hurdle. The next issue is payroll. For your kids to be on payroll, you must actually issue them a W-2 and include them on your 941 filings. You can't just pay them as contractors. That triggers self-employment tax and defeats the purpose. If you already have payroll set up, it's not hard to add them, but it has to be done throughout the year, not retroactively. For your kids to be on payroll, you must issue a W-2 and include them in your 941 filings. You can't just pay them as a contractor because that triggers self-employment tax and kind of defeats the purpose. If you already have payroll set up, it's not hard to add them, but it has to be done throughout the year, not retroactively. If you come to year end and say, oh, I meant to do that, and try to backdate paychecks or amend W-2s, that looks really bad, and the IRS is going to see right through it. You need to treat your kids like any other employee, which means keeping books and records, having them clock in and out, documenting the work they actually did, keeping timesheets or descriptions of tasks. If your other employees have to do this, your kids do too. There's also a special child labor law angle, so I'm not a lawyer or HR specialist, but depending on your state, there may be limits to what minors can legally do and how many hours they're allowed to work. So make sure you're familiar with those rules and how they apply to you. Now, another thing that's really important and that the TikTok tax gurus rarely mention is how this plays out if you're an S corporation. Because if you're a sole proprietorship, you might not have to pay employment taxes on your kids. But if you're an S corporation, you do. That means Social Security and Medicare, 15.3% in employment taxes. So let's say you're in the 12% income tax bracket and you pay your child $15,000. The good news is you get a $15,000 deduction, which saves you 12% in income tax. That's $1,800. The bad news, you're now paying 15.3% employment taxes. That's $2,295. You're actually losing money by doing this. And it can get even worse. Let's say you've done some other tax planning, maybe accelerated depreciation, and you're actually paying 0% in income tax this year. I've had people in this exact situation sit in my office and say, I want to hire my kids to save on taxes, but they're already paying 0%. In their case, paying their kids meant creating a 15% payroll tax liability where none existed before. That's the kind of thing that happens when convincing content creators pitch these ideas without any context. The strategy sounds good in isolation, but without understanding how your taxes actually work in your situation, it can easily backfire. And that leads me to my last and maybe most important point. Just because you can do something for tax savings doesn't always mean that you should. Think about your lifestyle and your family. Is it worth having your 12-year-old clean your office instead of spending time playing sports or hanging out with friends? Maybe it is. Maybe you want to teach them responsibility or give them a glimpse of what you do. That's great, but make sure it fits into your real life, not just your tax plan. The most successful clients I work with take advantage of legitimate tax strategies, but they focus on building their businesses and creating wealth, not bending their lives around every possible deduction. So as a recap, here's what absolutely does not work. Putting your kids on payroll when they don't actually work. That's clearly illegal. It is tax fraud. Paying them excessive amounts for what they do. Also tax fraud. Failing to document their work and hours. That's going to give you an automatic fail from the IRS. Treating them differently than other employees. Paying them outside of payroll or trying to backdate wages. Now here's what does work. Hire your kids only if they actually perform real age-appropriate work. Then run their pay properly through payroll. Keep a solid documentation of what they do and how they're paid. And if they earn under the standard deduction, they won't owe income tax. But remember, if you're an S corporation especially, be mindful of them potentially owing payroll taxes. At the end of the day, don't let the tax tail wag the lifestyle dog. Ask yourself, what's the real goal here? If it fits your business and your family, great. Do it right. But if it's just about squeezing out a small deduction, it's probably not worth twisting your life around. Hope this video has been helpful. Again, this is general tax advice. It's not meant to be specific to your situation. Don't apply it and get something wrong and then come be upset with me. Talk with me if you have questions, if you want to have this applied to your specific situation, and I'd be happy to help with that.